Tonight, with the nation already reeling from COVID-19's catastrophic death toll, the Surgeon General warning Americans to brace for what could be the hardest and saddest week of their lives.
The next week is going to be our Pearl Harbor moment. It's going to be our 9/11 moment. It's going to be the hardest moment for many Americans in their entire lives.
This is the Quarantine Chronicles Corner. That's right.
Good.
Well, dude, thanks again for doing this with me. Like I was telling you before, I've wanted to kind of, make this be about kind of the quarantine and people's perspective on it. And it seems that the majority of the people that have kind of agreed to do this are like in the photography community, or they're like creative people. But, like when we have conversations, it's always about like mental health and stuff. So I just thought, hey, that's important to me. And I think it's important to talk about during this whole thing. So that's why I wanted you to come on, and I'm really glad that you did.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one perspective. I think you probably get a lot of good stuff from people in the photography world that's maybe not as serious. I feel like mental health is a pretty serious avenue for the quarantine. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it's I mean, what you do and what Katie does and everyone that's sort of dealing with anxiety and depression that's presumably increasing as a result of all this, but we can talk about that. Like you guys are doing like real actual work, and you have very, blunt and real perspectives on it. The photography community is definitely interesting, and we like to, I guess, schmooze about all kinds of different things. But I think mental health is kind of a fun topic. I know it's serious, but it's also like, it's just interesting to think about like the psychology of different things that are happening, especially like the social psychology of just, the idea of everyone has to stay home. Like that's interesting. And it is kind of funny, but also scary at the same time.
Well, I think there's a lot of, you can take the serious avenue. You can also take the extremist avenue of people getting really worked up about being asked to stay at home. There's like the whole, they're taking our freedoms, we'll never be allowed out of our home. There's a lot of avenues to pursue, I think, with mental health, and they're not bad. I just think that depending where you're from and what you believe, this becomes a different topic.
Yeah.
On what you're experiencing. You know what I mean?
Totally. And where you get your information from as well. I would imagine that if someone is sort of like actively paying attention to all of the updates, like to be fair, it's probably most of us. If you're sort of just always on the horn waiting for that next, shitty update that sucks, and most of them are, you're probably going to think a little bit less rationally, or a little bit more like paranoia driven, I would think, than somebody who's just like, oh, I was out fishing all day. Like what's up? Cause you can't see this. Yeah.
And I think that, to be fair, I don't actually watch like the news all day long. Like I don't. I will say that I don't. I used to, and now I just feel like it's not probably good all around to only watch like updates and what's going on, because they tend to be pretty negative.
Yeah.
But I also think depending on what you're reading and where it's coming from plays a big role in how you're looking at what we're dealing with. And so I wouldn't dismiss any of that, but I also think if that's all you do all day long, it can't be good. It can't be good for your mind, your outlook. I think it looks pretty bleak no matter where you're looking.
Right. Yeah. So let's, there's something I want to do at the beginning of these is just to sort of state kind of the date and where we are and everything.
Okay.
So that, like, as I told you, I think the main purpose of this whole thing is so that in 30 years we can kind of look back on this and we'd be like, man, like, what was it like to just be in that, what headspace were you in? It's the one thing to just sort of historically be like, well, for 3 months it was a pain in the ass and then we all got about our business or whatever. Like, it's a lot different when you can say, this is what I was thinking, and these are the wacky conspiracy ideas that I might have had or whatever. So it's a little after 9 p.m. Eastern time. It's April 5th, Sunday. And at the moment, I'm just going to look over at my worldometers.info. Is this where you get your...
And give us some updated data?
Yeah.
Is that what you're about to do? Okay.
Yeah, so right now, worldwide, we've got 1.27 million cases. There's just shy of 70,000 deaths. And then the US is at 336,000 total cases and just shy of 10,000 deaths. I wish I could remember where I was at 2 days ago when I did the last one. But I mean, I'm pretty sure it's a pretty significant difference between those 2 days.
Sure.
So, so Lisa is a personal friend of mine, and I guess really more of a friend of Katie's, I suppose. You guys been friends for a long time.
Yeah.
And both of you are in, work in the mental health field. You're both therapists. So maybe we can just kind of start with a little background on the kind of therapy that you do and the kind of people that you work with, and
well, I mean, the therapy I do is mostly with children and adolescents, and a lot of family therapy. And then I work with a lot of trauma cases. So PTSD, assault, sexual assault, verbal assault, domestic violence, war veterans. I mean, you kind of name it there. But trauma and but mostly children and adolescent centered, which is a little bit weird during this time because it's a whole different ball game.
Since the start of the coronavirus pandemic, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention urged the public to take care of their mental health. However, with so many questions left unanswered, the world's anxiety levels have skyrocketed.
Quite frankly, for children and teenagers, it was more of these really concrete things. Am I going to die? Are they shutting down the grocery stores? They're going to come in and we're all going to be locked in our houses and we're going to run out of food.
Tri-state therapist Lisa Hughes has seen a surge of people reaching out for counseling to reduce anxiety symptoms during this time of social distancing. Hughes' biggest piece of advice is encouraging patients to only focus on what they can control.
I know a lot of people initially, it was kind of this, we get to work from home and it's kind of a vacation. It doesn't feel that way. Do things that make you feel purposeful, because without that purpose, people will really just, it's like living in a ball of chaos.
Yeah, I would imagine. I mean, all the things that I'm thinking and the ways I'm reacting to the whole thing is probably a very 30-something-year-old perspective of what that is. So I can't imagine, that a 17-year-old is thinking about this even remotely in the same way that I am, right? I mean, how are they, is there any kind of consistency at the way that their outlook is, or is it just completely case by case?
I feel like it's case by case. I think that the ones that I have that actually have a stake in it, for example, I mean, you have diabetes, right?
Right.
So kids with diabetes, the kids with diabetes know that they have a problem in terms of they need to take this seriously.
Right.
Whereas the kids with no medical issues, no underlying chronic issues are concerned, but they don't have the same level of concern. It's mostly if I'm a senior in high school, I've missed my prom, I've missed my, everything's been canceled.
Yeah.
Versus the ones that are sitting home going, if I leave my house and I get this, I have a really high risk of not making it. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I have two very distinct categories. The ones who I have diabetes, I have Lyme disease, I have POTS, I have just a whole bunch, that category of underlying illnesses. Mm-hmm. They are looking at this as a much, I think, scarier time, where the other ones I feel like are more inconvenienced. They're like, this is messing up, and rightfully so, but messing up, what I had planned.
Yeah.
This actually affects me. So I feel like it's split pretty evenly down the board.
Yeah. I don't think that, I'm sure I don't, and probably a lot of other people that are, not teenagers anymore, I probably don't think of it as much that way. Like, this has been canceled. I mean, obviously I think people are looking ahead to it's getting nicer out, and pretty soon it's going to be summer, and I don't want to miss out on my vacation. I'm sure that exists to a degree, but you're right. When you're in high school, it seems that that everything is high school, so missing a prom or missing, just whatever you want to, the end of that era of your life, that has to suck.
I mean, it does for them. They cry. They're like, I missed my sports season. I didn't get to walk on senior night. I don't get a prom. Graduation is up in the air at the moment, depending on where we go, and it's like, do I not get to graduate? And I think that when you're in that sector of your life, you pretty much think that's the only thing that matters. For them, it's a huge deal that this is happening during that time, for sure.
Yeah. I can imagine. I mean, I can imagine how just like, like later on in life, I feel like most people sort of come around and be like, oh man, why did I take that, those periods of my life like so serious, like they were so monumental at the time, because by comparison, when you're older, they seem like, whatever, like why did I get so worked up about whatever, not being the most popular kid or whatever it is. But yeah, when you're that age, I feel like it's just, those social things, those social norms are like just so huge.
Yeah, it's a big deal. I mean, I don't know how you were in high school. I know how I was in high school.
I was not one of the cool kids.
But I wanted to do all the things in high school. I think if someone had told me then, like, you don't get to do A, B, C, or D, at the time, I would have thought it was the worst thing that could ever happen to me. I mean, I can look now and say it's no big deal. Yeah. But I think for anybody, cool kid or not, if you have any stake in your high school career, it feels like someone has ripped that away from you. Yeah. And so I try and keep that in mind, which is a little difficult because you have people that are actually going to be impacted in a really bad way. And I try and remind myself, no matter which road you follow, doesn't mean you're wrong. It's just that one is more serious than the other, but it doesn't mean it's different. For them, it's the same. It means a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think like if inconvenience is inconvenience, it doesn't, just because somebody has it worse off, and maybe it's fair for me to say because I have diabetes, I don't know. To be honest, I'm pretty sure it's like the type 2 people are the ones that are like, actually that's the bigger difference versus type 1.
That's the thing? How do you know?
Well, I looked up, I mean, this is very inconclusive, but I looked up an article that was written by an endocrinologist and having 3 different diabetics that had come down with, or maybe it was a normal doctor, I can't remember. But anyway, they had 3 diabetics, and I think 2 of them were type 2 and one of them was type 1. And he was just sort of talking about the way that they had reacted to acquiring the virus. And based on obviously very limited evidence, because of course there's not going to be that much evidence up to this point, his opinion was that he didn't see that much of a difference for people that had type 1.
Okay. I did not know that, but that maybe makes you feel a little bit better. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't even know. This whole thing is so gigantic, and there's so little that you can really, there's such a small amount that you could even act on, and then of course there's like no clarity on top of it. You wouldn't even know where to, begin the plan. Mm-hmm. It's like I don't even know how to feel. I don't know. I'm not mad. I'm not like super sad. I'm not anything. I'm just. It's like it's just too unbelievable to actually strike a chord with me, I think, yet.
Well, that's fair. And I think that I don't really know, because in this situation, like, I couldn't look at you and say, this is how I'd feel if I'm someone with some sort of underlying condition, because I feel like it does become more grave or more serious, or you need to be more careful. Mm-hmm. But the flip side of that is I get to this point where I'm also like, I don't want to be sad every day, and I don't want to be upset every day. And so I feel like I just, no matter who I'm talking to through the day, it's usually about this, right? If I'm in session, we're talking about this. If I'm talking to my parents, it's about this, and a lot of times I'm like, that's fine. But at some point, I think it doesn't help people either to only be upset, because if you're only upset, I just think it turns into like this really dark time that you can't get out of.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely weighs you down. I mean, I'll feel a little, meh from time to time. I don't know how much of it necessarily has to do with like everything that's going on, or like the virus specifically and the dangers of that, or if it just has more to do with like, I feel like I'm just sitting around all the time, and and I'm trying to do things here and there, but I would say like me personally, that probably affects me maybe the most, is just the fact that I don't know, I'm in a very like stagnant kind of life right now, where it's just every day is like, you know, and honestly, we probably have it better than most people. You know, we like Katie and I and Ellie, who's almost 2 years old now, who's just like, you know, she doesn't know anything's going on. She's just happy. She's just like unbelievably happy, like the happiest that you've ever been multiple times a day. You know what I mean?
She's so cute. She's out on your deck sweeping and wearing everyone's shoes. She's so cute. She's entertaining you through this whole entire thing.
Right. And so I feel like that gives me definitely an advantage over most. Because, you know, at least I have that. Whereas like, you know, I have friends like, you know, Alex, you know, I feel bad for him. Like he's just sitting at home and he's just, you know, he's just got nothing, like he can't do anything. And I mean, I feel like even people that like, hey, want to hang out, it's like a lot of people are kind of like, I know it's probably fine, but like a lot of people don't even, you know, you get sort of, you know, used to the idea of not going out. It makes it like, it's like easier to get out of doing stuff. You know, it's like the best things ever.
I mean, that's true. Although I will say, someone who doesn't like to get out of doing stuff, I'm on the opposite side of that, where it's like, I'm looking for reasons why we could probably be okay. Do you know what I mean? I know that's not the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I'm doing all the right things, but as someone who lives alone and is used to like feeding off the energy of other people, I'm not a huge fan.
Yeah. No, I can't blame you.
That, you know, but I know it's the right thing to do, and I know that it's good to be very careful. So I'll do all of those things, but like, whereas other people look for excuses to get out of things,
right? I'm
like, can we somehow navigate around this where we haven't broken any rules and we can hang out and do something? And, you know, I don't do that, but I would prefer to, whereas other people like the idea of not having to. And I don't know how Alex is doing. Does he want to be around people? Does he not?
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, he doesn't, you know, he's not like, you know, really upset, or at least evidently anyway. But, you know, I just assume that it sucks, because if I were him, like, oh man, it would be, if I weren't in the situation that I'm in, and I'm still left wanting more, you know, even with Katie and Ellie and our dog, like you know, I'm still like bored. I want to do stuff. So I can imagine if I were him or even you, like I know that would just be bothering the hell out of me.
Yeah. I mean, I think, well, first of all, Ellie is entertainment. So no matter what, you get that part of it, but you have someone there. But I can imagine, well, I guess I'm kind of projecting on him because I'm not him. But if you live alone, you have to do a pretty good job of being like, get up,
right?
Like ready, participate in your own day. And no one's holding you accountable for that. You could literally lay around all day. No one would care. You know, I mean, I have a job to do, so I can get up and I'm like, okay, I have this many clients today, so I need to log in. I need to, you know, my job and Katie's, obviously you're watching that. Like your job doesn't get less during a global pandemic.
Yeah. It definitely keeps you honest, right?
Yeah. Everybody's like, hey, you need to talk to us all the time. So I think that is pretty good. But if you are on your own, this can be a pretty difficult time if you're alone, like in terms of just your living situation, because who do you talk to? You have to talk to people, and you just don't have that natural human connection.
Right. And you know, it's like you can do this, but perfect world, I would just be like, Lisa, we'll put the camera up and the two of us will sit at the table and we'll do this. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't, I'm not really that big of a fan of doing it via the you know, Zoom or WebEx or whatever. Because it just, there is that little bit that's kind of missing. You know, some people don't like to make phone calls. Some people don't like to, it's weird. You know, I feel like it's a forced, you know, type of social situation for a lot of people. The thing you said earlier totally resonated with me, by the way, that like the, you know, some people they don't have sort of that other person to like motivate them or whatever, to like, all right, you put your pants on or whatever it is. Because I mean, truthfully, like I'm that guy 100%. Like if I were in a situation where like I had my, I didn't have any place to work and, no wife or girlfriend or whatever. And, it was just, you sort of wake up and it's like, what, what the hell? Like, I would be a total piece of shit. I really would. Like a complete and utter piece of shit. I just wouldn't do anything. It would be ugly.
I mean, it's easy to be a piece of shit in this. Even if you have someone, I got to be honest, even if you have someone,
right,
it's to go that way.
Right.
If you have a kid, your purpose is a really good one because that kid holds you accountable. But like, I even talk to some of my married friends that are like, I mean, I don't want to look at this person. Like, he shuts the cabinet doors too loud and I don't really care. I'm on my leggings for the 8 billionth day that I'm on them. Like, it's even then it's not like enough motivation. And I'm absolutely not hating on that. I'm just saying that I think that
you're right.
Overall, like, it doesn't even, I think if you have children, you're like, well, I have to show up as a parent. I'm getting a lot of mixed reviews as like a spouse or partnership where some of it's good and some of it's like, I don't know that this is really good for our relationship to be stuck in this situation. And so depends on who you are.
No, and honestly, I would probably bet that more people are in that category. And honestly, like, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm actually kind of surprised that that we're not in that category. Because if I were to bet on just me, like a year ago, hey, listen, in a year you're going to have this global pandemic and you're just going to be stuck at home all day and just going to be you and Katie at home all day. How do you think it's going to go? Like, what are you putting your money on? I'd be like, yeah, we're going to be arguing a lot. And that's what I would think. And somehow, I don't know, maybe like we're still looking at it as this like fun snowstorm and we like don't have to go to work. Like maybe it hasn't really set in, but for the moment, I don't know, it seems to be going okay.
Well, that's good. And also, you guys, first of all, you're a great dad, which your wife loves. So that's good.
Thank you.
Know that on the side note, like she loves how you are with Ellie, but also she's working. So you're not necessarily, I think people can't be together 24 hours a day.
No way.
Yeah. I don't think that's a thing. But, you do your thing, she does her thing. And I think that if you can be that way in your own home where it's like, okay, I'm going to go do this, you're going to go do that, I think you're going to do a lot better. Far be it for me to say what's what. But I think that people don't do well from going to, we both go to work, to we both don't have anything else to do.
Right.
But look at each other. And I feel like you and Katie are not in that situation. And, some people, I'm going to stick with mixed reviews because I feel like it's really not fair to throw some people under the bus, but like some people are really unhappy with this situation and some people are like, yeah, we're doing fine.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. So another one of my friends, whom you may know, so he just moved in with his girlfriend. Okay. And it's one of these situations where I feel as though both of them were sort of very cautious about, getting into the relationship on like a serious level with each other. I'm somewhat assuming this. I don't necessarily know this, for a fact, but I get the impression, that it was kind of like, should we be official? Let's wait. And then the act of moving in was like this big, like, okay, like, all right, we're gonna do it. And they live in Brooklyn, and they moved in together like 2 weeks ago, something like 3 weeks ago, something like that.
Okay.
So these are two people that were very, like wanting to be autonomous and wanting their independence and I would say being careful about moving into together. And then it's like they move in together and it's like, okay, none of you can leave, like stay inside and you can't go anywhere. And so of course we were all kind of like laughing about that the other day, just like, dude, that is unbelievable luck.
Yeah. I feel like that's a lot of pressure to make a decision to move in together and then no one can go anywhere, no one can do anything. And I gotta be honest, I don't think I'd like to be in that position.
No, and there's nothing you can do.
Yeah. No, you can't. And, you can look at it as this is what we have to do.
Mm-hmm.
But to give them credit, it's the ultimate test. If they're okay at the end of it, they're okay. Like, they're new. I can't imagine being new and moving in and being like, we can't go anywhere and we can't separate, really. That seems awful.
I know.
I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of that arrangement.
Especially too, because like you have all of your like first things, like, oh, like you make this noise when you would, you know what I mean? And so like usually when things like that happen, I feel like people need a little, like, you need to kind of like, oh Jesus, I need like a day to process this before, like we're in the same bed again, or whatever the hell, if it's just like, you walk in and like, oh man, they're taking a shit or whatever, and you're just like, oh geez, and like, as funny as it might be, there's still, it's like, I don't, when it's newer, don't you feel like you kind of want to, all right, I'm just gonna like go and do this, and we'll just forget that little bit never happened. And
you're not ready. And like, honestly, I mean, if we're being serious, my colon, it's not a great thing. I think if I had to move in with someone and be like, let's talk about all my colon issues, and you can't actually get away from them, that's awful. I think that's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And not that I would mind later, but you really have no place to go and do anything that makes you look ladylike. And I'm coming at it from a girl's perspective, but let's be serious. Like,
well, I think it's that subject is probably worse off for most, I would think. Of course, I'm not accusing every woman or every man of anything, but I would think that the majority of females would, that's their like horror, nightmare story, is like, oh my God, I didn't flush the toilet, or whatever it is. Like,
because every girl in the world is like, I'll double flush, or I'll spray Febreze in the air while it's happening. And then if you have moved in with someone and can't literally leave, there's no way to get around that. I think that's sad for women everywhere.
Right.
I maybe men, but I feel like guys get away with a lot more than girls.
Right. Also, side note, for anyone that is listening and do not understand, who may now wonder why you just said, Adam, my colon, and then proceeded to tell a story afterwards.
Yeah.
What are we talking about exactly?
Well, we're talking about my colon issues that came after I had the neurovirus, right? So I got really sick, and that was horrible. But when I got sick, the neurovirus is like the stomach bug on steroids and more.
Okay.
So if you've had it before, when I had it, I threw up every 5 minutes for 8 to 9 hours.
Jesus.
And then was put almost in the hospital, but a doctor called me in some stuff over the phone because I was like passed out and dehydrated, and they were just like, all right, we're going to try and take care of this without the emergency room. Mm-hmm. But anyway, after that, I couldn't keep food in, and everything went kind of awry. So my colon issues weren't a thing until that happened. But now they are, a problem most of the time.
Right.
So it wasn't, I was actually a pretty normal lady.
You had a normal colon?
Yeah, I had a normal colon. But that's also when I got my dairy allergy, which also is the second part to the colon, is if I have any dairy, but I didn't have that before I got sick. So all of that kind of comes together. But being a girl with a colon issue is like the least attractive quality you could ever have.
Yeah, that sucks. I really feel bad for you. That does. I hear you. That sucks.
It does. But now I got to be honest, I probably should be more ladylike, but it's just like, okay, well, this is what, so you'll be okay with it or you won't. And
do you think that's just Lisa being Lisa, or is that like ever since I started just shitting all over the place, I've decided that like, this is the best you're gonna get?
Well, it might be both, but I feel like at some point I just had to be like, you're either gonna be embarrassed about it, or you're just gonna start being like, this is who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, not exactly great, but I just think that it'd just be better to just say, like, if I'm telling you I have to poop, I have to poop. Like, there's no in between. Like, I need to go right now, and you need to be okay with it. And if you're not, then
Right.
we probably shouldn't hang out.
Right. Have you had any was there a story or anything of just like, oh yeah, I didn't, and then I forgot to flush it or whatever, and then he walked in, or like, have you had any moments like that thus far?
I haven't had, that's never happened to me. I have had one moment where I mistook the idea where I was like, oh, my stomach kind of hurts, and I think it's gaseous, and it wasn't gaseous. It ended up just being that I had to poop, and I shat myself on the couch.
Oh, so you sharted?
Yeah.
Okay.
But shart is like little. This was like, your colon came out, and I had to throw away the pants I was in and everything. But to be fair, I was not in front of anyone important during that time. The rest of the time, I'm just pretty honest about the fact that, like,
well, who are you around that we'll know that they're not important?
Oh, my sister. But
okay.
She didn't care. She thought it was really funny, but she didn't matter. And
she's
so
seen your poop before.
Huh?
I said she's seen your poop before.
Oh, at some point, I would imagine so. But she was not important, and it didn't matter. And we had a really good laugh.
Right.
Probably to the point where tears came out of my eyes because I thought it was funny. I think if I was in a different position, I may not have thought that. But,
right. Like in front of a client, for example.
Right. That would be okay.
A little weird.
But, I have had one instance where I've had to leave a client session. Luckily, it was a kid. And I was like, draw on this paper because Miss Lisa just has to run to the bathroom really quick. And he just like sat there and drew his little picture. And I just like hightailed it out of the room.
Yeah.
Because, but I've not had that happen with an adult. And I will knock on all the wood that does not happen.
Hey,
knock on all the wood.
There.
But
I did you solid there. So actually, this is a terrific segue into what may become like a little moment from every podcast of what is your current toilet paper supply, because it seems that that last little toilet paper clip that I posted on wherever the hell I posted it, people were very interested in the idea of how much toilet paper and what a person's toilet paper situation was given the great toilet paper shortage of 2020 or whatever the hell we're calling it. So what is your current toilet paper situation?
So actually, I'm in a pretty bad way at the moment.
Really?
Yeah, because I didn't, and I don't want to minimize the current situation, but toilet paper was not
at the top of your.
I think that people panic, but it doesn't make any sense.
No, it's totally weird.
You don't need toilet paper. You don't need bottled water. Like, your water works. We're not in a blizzard. We're not in a flood. We're not in anything that would take away these resources. But people are buying as though that's what's happening. And so at the time when all of this started, I was like, well, I have plenty of toilet paper. It's just me here. It's like no problem. And now I don't, and I can't find it anywhere. I can't find. So I went to a bunch of places, and truthfully, I saw Chris on Friday, and he was like, I'll go in the model homes, and I'm going to take a bunch of the rolls from the model homes and bring them over to you.
A regular Robin of Locksley.
Yeah.
Stealing from the model homes and giving to the, more.
And he was like, I'll just look and get you some rolls. And I don't need that many rolls, but I actually, I was so dismissive of the fact that, like, toilet paper, I said, I'll wait till it's restocked. And it turns out no one can keep it on the shelves.
There's just no more. We've just run out of toilet paper.
Yeah. I mean, and people are going, I still actually, that's something I haven't wrapped my head around, of the idea of I have to run out and get a Costco-sized thing of toilet paper right now. But whatever it is, I don't know how it is in, Chesterbrook or that part of Pennsylvania. But I know here, every time I go, I cannot find it. And I looked up, so Target said they had toilet paper. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go and just get this like little pack of toilet paper.
Yeah.
And, but they're doing that thing now where they open the store for seniors for an hour, and then you can go in after the first hour. Are they doing that where you live right now?
Yes, they are. I assume they're still doing it, but I remember they announced that I don't know, a week or two ago, like the
Okay.
first hour of.
Yeah, so the first hour they're open. So I said, okay, well, I'm just going to get there right when, my age group is allowed to go in. And I walked in, and the guy literally rolled past me with a thing of Charmin. And I was like, oh, okay, good, they have toilet paper. And I got back there, and it was gone.
He had the last one.
I only had 2 packs of Charmin, and this is what happened. So, yeah, it's just, I didn't take it seriously, but now I'm wondering if I should have taken it more seriously because I can't find it anywhere.
It's funny. I'm picturing that episode of Seinfeld where Jerry like steals the ham from the old lady on the street in Manhattan. Yeah. Remember that? And he goes, "Give me it, you old bag," and he takes it from her and he runs off. And I'm picturing like some younger people like wrestling toilet paper away from some poor old person.
I know, and I don't want to be a part of any of that. But I really think that I really don't. But I'm surprised because I feel like common sense, this is the part where I wrestle with some of these things, is that common sense is not playing a role here.
No, and it is funny how, while everyone that sort of rationally sat around and said, I'm not gonna go and make a huge run on toilet paper. That's ridiculous. Like most rational people like yourself would have thought, those are all the people that are like, I guess I should have been irrational. It's like that. I don't know what the lesson learned is, I guess when people start acting crazy, you should just join them and you're better off that way. It was a run on toilet paper as though it were much more apocalyptic than it actually was. And the like manifestation of that apocalypse is everyone's just going to spontaneously shit their pants. It was like, I don't understand why was it toilet paper? Like it could have been anything. It's just apparently when you get sick, we're just all going to shit ourselves. Like, I don't get it.
Well, and the idea, and I don't want to, I feel torn because I'm like, okay, Lisa, you understand panic, you know where it comes from, you know why people panic. And I do understand that, but it just is not rooted in anything. And so my thought was, well, okay, fine, let all these people buy toilet paper because then when they restock the shelves, anybody who didn't run out and buy huge amounts of toilet paper can just go shopping. And that actually threw me for a loop. I'm a little surprised that they can't actually keep toilet paper on the shelves because I feel like anybody who panicked and bought it, and I got to be honest, I don't know how you all are with your toilet paper. Hopefully you're good and you're fine and all those things. But like,
what you mean by good or fine? You mean in terms of my quantity?
You have a good quantity of toilet paper for yourselves.
It's time to start looking. That's where we're at. We were good for a little while, and now I've had, I think, maybe like a couple of failed attempts over the past week. It's kind of like, all right, I should start looking again because I'm not sure what it's going to look like in a week. And I've tried to. The next step is to go in person, but I've tried to complete a grocery order, like a delivery order, on 2 separate occasions, and both times there was no toilet paper.
Okay.
So the next step is to just go to a couple of spots and see.
And see if they have it. And so I think I thought, okay, well, in my own logic, I was like, all right, well, let all the people who need to buy all the toilet paper go. And then by the time I need toilet paper, they'll have brought regular amounts of toilet paper back for the rest of the people. And it turns out that I was completely wrong.
Right. Well, because everyone gets it. It's the moment that they restock. It's out in like an hour,
Yeah.
In
fact, what are people doing? It's not a symptom of this.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like it's like as if it went from whatever March 4th to March 5th, and all of a sudden everyone was just like, I can't stop pooping. It's the most bizarre thing, and it seems to predominantly be that. Like, I'm sure there's shortages of other things, don't get me wrong, but like that one seems to be the bad one. And it's just odd to me that like of all the hundreds of possible things, you're like, okay, right, we ran out of milk or something. Like toilet paper just seems like a very odd one.
It does, in terms of I can't keep this on the shelves. What
Right.
I mean? This is not and between that and bottled water, these seem to be the two commodities that people like taking in big quantities.
Mm-hmm.
Bottled water and toilet paper, but your water didn't get shut off. Like nothing is
Right.
actually happening in your day-to-day home life. Life has changed in terms of your ability to, go out, your social life, how you interact, going to places. I get it. A lot of stuff has changed. But one of the things that has not changed is just your daily functioning in your own home. You don't
Right.
you don't need to use a toilet more than you
I would
used
think.
before, I would think. And you don't run out of water. Like if
Yeah.
you used your water, it's still functioning. And
Right.
so that's the kind of thing where I think we start this very we use the word apocalypse or apocalyptic, but that's how I feel. Where I'm like, it's being treated as an apocalyptic event, and I think that is not a good way for anyone to approach it,
Mm-hmm.
because it becomes even an extra level than it already is.
Right. Well, people really, I mean, people are so, pampered in the world today that I feel like, things are just so easy. I'm not talking about like for everyone and like economically and all the, obviously, yeah, there are many hardships that exist. I'm not, dismissing that at all. But, just the fact that like, when you walk into a grocery store, there's a billion different things. Like you didn't have to, kill any of it. Like it's the process of living life at a basic level is very, very easy now. That I think when the threat even exists of that going away, I don't think most people have it in them to sort of, rationalize and say, okay, well, you know what, we'll just have to do this instead, or okay, well, I've got some other solution lined up. We're just sort of on this autopilot of like, just life is just very easy and we can just move on to the next day, and everything is sort of at your disposal all the time. That yeah, I mean, I just I think that people are confronted with this idea that, well, what if it's not, maybe what if the potential that it's going to change, they just don't like know what the hell to do about it, and so you end up with like this weird run on toilet paper.
Yeah. And I think that well, that's a good point to talk about how easy it is for us to live. I mean, that's all of us. I'm not going to say it's not easy for me to live.
Yeah.
We get to stand into it, anything you want is pretty much at your disposal and you're not suffering. And this has thrown people for a loop. And rightfully so. I mean, it's asking you to do things very differently. But really what they're asking in the big picture is for you to sit in your comfortable home and eat your food, and just, you can't go out to your favorite restaurant or your favorite bar, and you can't see people. And I mean, I'm the first one to tell you it's not that that's easy. Like I'll tell you that I would prefer to be able to go out and come and go as I please. It's not that I think that that's necessarily easy, but we are living in a country where we just really don't lack for comforts.
Right.
This to us is an inconvenience, and sometimes I'm, because I have my like little bike for my spin studio in the garage, and I'm like, oh, I have to work out in my garage, and it's like, well, okay, Lisa, like, sorry that you have to get on your bike and spin at home, but you're not from a third world country where people don't have access to medical care or food, or I try and keep that perspective, and I'm not saying that it's fair of me to assign that to everyone, but I do think it's the truth. Like I think we're being asked to stay home in the comforts of our own home.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is silly when you think, like, I mean, well, one thing that there's no shortage of right now are just funny memes and just stupid things on the internet. And like, the one that I see a lot of is like, yeah, our grandparents had to, work in like munitions plants, making, rifle bullets and stuff. And all the guys were overseas, like dying in Normandy and everything. So, this is our like Normandy moment. It's just like, and it's just like, I can't, I'm running out of stuff to watch on Netflix. And it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Tiger King. I'm very upset about how I finished Tiger King. Yeah.
That was another one. The one with Trump is like whispering, I think it's like to Pence or something. And it says, and it was like, the coronavirus is coming, release the Tiger documentary.
Oh, is that a meme? I haven't seen that one.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good one.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Also, I mean, you're talking about, well, I'm sure there could be plenty of Trump Pence memes in this.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Every day. There's several every day.
Well, and it's a cluster. Look, I'm not going to sit here and argue that the United States has failed in its ability to look like a nation that knows what it's doing.
Right.
Ample time to get ready. It had ample time to prepare. That's not something we're going to be able to change now, but it is disappointing. I mean, we could do better than this. But as far as being a person living in it, I do try and remind myself that basically I'm being asked to work from home and live in my house and, like, you know, just go on, don't go out,
Right.
and I feel like I need to keep perspective, because sometimes I want to go out and I want to do things, and I do get a little bit, overwhelmed by the idea that I'm still in here. But I just think in the big picture, I've not been asked to do anything that really is awful.
Right. Right. I mean, it does suck. It sucks. Like, let's not, I don't want to act like I'm, 97 years old, get off my lawn, like type of guy here. I mean, it sucks. There's a ton of stuff that I wish I could be doing. I mean, from a, photography business standpoint, it's just a dead stop. Like, there's just nothing. Any momentum that I had going on is just, screeching halt. And it's like, you wonder if some of these contacts that you've made recently or just, I had a few like sort of commercial type of things that were coming up that, just starting to feel good about a lot of stuff. And, you just wonder, it's like, are some of these things going to have the same level of enthusiasm that they did when we were talking about before? What are they going to change? Are they even going to exist anymore? So, like, it sucks, and it sucks for a lot of people, but yeah, in the grand scheme of things, I guess if you're to look at us over the course of the past 100 years or something, it does seem there are aspects of the complaints that seem trivial.
Well, some of them, but like what you're talking about, so I can sit here and I can say, okay, my job just got a lot harder. And I'll be honest, it did. That might sound like complaining, and I don't mean it, but no one taught me what it's like to be a therapist during a global pandemic.
Right.
It's not something that they teach you. But in the big scheme of things, I have a job, and I have a big one at this moment in time. Whereas people like you who are self-employed or small business or trying to get things off the ground or are in service or, actually that I think is really heartbreaking, because I think that, that's different than, if you take the component of I have to stay at home, I'm talking about we all, for the most part, we get the comforts of home and we're not being challenged to live in dark or dire circumstances for the most part. But as far as employment and saying, if I'm someone who works in an industry that is not considered important or essential, or, people like it, but they're not going to spend money on it right now, or whatever it is that you're doing. I think that's a whole component in itself, because I might feel overwhelmed by my job, and I do, but I know I have one.
Right.
Like, I'm going to look and say, right now, I'm going to have to worry about, am I going to be working? Whereas someone like you or anybody else in an industry that's kind of being put off to the side right now, or working really hard to try and keep people interested or spending money, that's a really tough place to be.
I think that, I mean, one, I guess, potentially good aspect out of that whole idea of just out of work people is that, and I said this the other day when I was doing the podcast with Emmerich, and I still haven't looked up the quote, but there's a quote. It's something about like, we're not like the most ingenuity or something like that comes from the point when we're at the precipice. And I'm completely paraphrasing it. But the whole idea is that it's the idea of kind of being like fat and happy, and just sort of, don't expect people to be really motivated if they're not struggling, And so if you get to the point where you basically say, no, like I'm actually screwed here, I don't know what to do. And you have a lot of people that are having that same level of anxiety. Now, on one hand, you're going to have a lot of bad shit. You're going to have probably a lot of suicides and things like that, make no mistake. But But at the same time, you're going to have a lot of those like billion-dollar ideas, I think, stem from things like this, where people just go, the world has changed, or at least it's changed for a significant period of time. Like the supply and the demand is different, and right now people need whatever it is. And it's like I keep saying that to myself, like, dude, when are you gonna wake up and go, I got it, and like I come up with whatever, like the Uber for whatever the 2020 thing might be, and I know that they're sitting there and they're waiting to be taken, and I know that there are going to be some very interesting and very smart people that are gonna use this thing to come up with some cool stuff.
Yeah. And I think, well, and that could be you. You don't know. You
No,
might
it's not gonna be me. I wish it would. I'd love to be that guy.
Another idea. But I think that for people who are, this is for people who are creative or can think outside the box or what have you. This puts, a spin on what can you put together during a time when things seem like there's just no use for a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
We're minimizing what we need to function on right now. But that also gets people, I think, invested in, if you come up with something that people really attach to, that's what people are looking for, because they have no human connection. They have no, like your regular, I take advantage of the fact that I can go out or see people or spend time with people is now gone. And so, to some degree, if you are someone who can come up with a really cool $1 million or just really creative outside of the box, I'm going to think of a way to reach people or find something artistic or musical or all the things.
Right, whatever it is, yeah.
Whatever that idea is, I think you could latch onto it and really go with it somewhere, because people are really craving the idea of not being isolated. Human beings do not like being isolated.
No.
That's how everyone feels right now. You've isolated me.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's a little bit of this rant of like, you've taken away my freedom. I don't think that's wrong. I think that's true, but I think it's because
it seems to be a very like demographic or maybe even like a regional thing on that in regards to what you were just saying, is that like you do find that there are different like levels of upset, where like some people are just sort of, I'm anxious about all these bad things that could happen. I don't want to get sick. I don't want my mother to get sick, and all those kind of like most obvious negative reactions to it. But like, you also have a lot of people that are, you have people that are obviously upset about all the financial implications. That's maybe the second most, I would think, source of anxiety, is just like, what the hell am I going to do? And then I think down the line, you just have that maybe almost like a defiant way of looking at it, of just like, no one's going to tell me like that I can't go and do this. And obviously the argument to that is, well, dude, it's not necessarily about you, it's you getting somebody else sick. And that's totally understandable, and I get that. But at the same time, I don't know, that there is a point to the person being like, but I'm like, I should be able to make that decision myself. I'm sure there are probably a lot of other things that we could explore the legality of, in which you could say this is kind of a double standard. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I'm sure there are other things in which potentially you could be putting somebody else in danger by some behavior that you do, but that behavior is still allowed, and we're not sort of barring you from leaving your house.
Yeah. I don't know, because I think right now that line is pretty blurry in terms of, saying, well, you can't tell me what to do. And there are people that are really digging in their heels at the,
oh yeah,
you can't tell me what I can and cannot do. So a guy the other day, I don't remember which part of Maryland, but he got arrested because he had a 60-person bonfire.
All right, when we told you cities are cracking down on large gatherings, we were not kidding. Police are not playing around. In Charles County, sheriff's deputies arrested this man in Hughesville last night. We're told Sean Myers violated the state's rule limiting gatherings to 10 people. The sheriff's office says he had a bonfire at his house with, get this, about 60 people there. When deputies ordered him to break it all up, he refused. And we're told this was already his second warning.
He was arrested, and And so now, because we have shelter in place, he could, now he's not now, like he has to pay a fine, but if he had been arrested after the shelter in place, he could have gotten a year in jail for his behavior.
So what,
And
the police showed up and there was just like they were just having a rager in the woods or something?
so his neighbor, he had neighbors. They called and were like and I don't know what it is in Pennsylvania right now. Our thing is 10 people or less. So I don't know if you guys are the same right now.
I think that may be what it is. I forget. That seems so long ago that they instituted that rule, and
yeah. So
anybody. So I don't even.
I don't. So Pennsylvania started shelter in place before the state of Maryland, but they were only doing counties. So like you guys went into shelter in place quicker because other counties in Pennsylvania, like the ones that are backed up to Maryland, have, I mean, they're very rural, so they were not included in that because they didn't have the community spread or whatever. Like there's just cities are in a tougher spot, in Pennsylvania. It's a big state. So now all of Pennsylvania is shelter in state, but Maryland didn't implement this till literally last Monday.
No kidding. Huh.
Yeah. So they were doing a state of emergency. They were doing 10 groups, but they were not doing shelter in place. And then, ironically, the guy who got arrested for the 60 plus bonfire, him and another person got arrested for something similar. Then on Monday, they came out and said, well, now we're going to shelter in place and it's a criminal activity if you're doing this sort of thing. Not surprising because it always takes someone who just like literally doesn't listen for them to have to do this. So then there's this big argument, like you're taking away the freedom of doing what I want, but this guy isn't a moron. Like it's just he did this thing that was
people is like, bro, come on.
I mean, you're just, you're not even trying. Like
push it that far.
Right. So his neighbors called in and the police came in, and that's how that all went. But I think when you're talking about where's the line between, well, I'm going to do what I want to do, but what are we doing for the good of humanity, basically? It's just sort of like this. I feel like that's a weird argument because you're going to ask, what are you going to, if you don't do what they're asking you to do, we're all going to be in this situation for much longer than anyone wants to be. And so I feel like people who kind of resist that are actually just making it worse for everyone. And it's just like, come on, man. Like, we know life is hard, but you need to just suck it up. But I can see the other side of it. I understand that people feel like at some point they get to say, I get to do what I want. But like that guy's an idiot. I'm sorry, but that guy's an idiot. Like,
well, that's just completely unnecessary.
Like why is that the thing you need to do?
Right. Whereas, like, so on the other hand, when I was talking with Emmerich a couple of days ago, he told me this story about there was some guy in like Malibu that was like like paddle boarding, and this like police boat like comes out onto the water and he's like by himself and like chases him down and it's like this whole scene and so anyway I ended up looking it up and I put a clip of it in the last podcast, but it's so crazy. It's like there's literally a guy and he's in California. Paddleboarding, and that you see this big boat like you cut him off, and like I presume they've got like a air horn or something. You couldn't tell, but and they're basically like telling this guy that he's got to get back to the beach, and then they bring him back to the beach, and then they arrest him, and it's just that almost seems like it's on the other side where it's like, look, is this order to where you can't do anything, and it is made for everyone's protection, but you look at that and you're just like, I mean, that's just because, I mean, there was probably more risk and more of a waste of just sending those guys out there to even take care of that guy, Well,
in that I look at, I 100% agree with that. That person was not doing anything wrong.
Right.
How socially distanced can you be from a human to take your board into the ocean and be around no other people?
Right.
I do. I mean, I think that's an extreme version of this person wasn't doing anything that put anybody in danger. So that seems a waste of resources. But, I mean, I don't know what they're doing out there, but that seems absurd to me. I'm like, you're going to have a boat creep up on some poor guy alone with his paddleboard and yell, and put him in.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the video is, some guy, shot it on Instagram, and he's just like laughing. He's just like, oh my God, they're gonna get him, and you know, it's funny. It's a funny video. But yeah, you know, I look at stuff like that, and I go, for all those kind of defiant people that are sort of, you know, you can't tell me what to do, and are, you know, maybe irrationally so that way, to where they're not kind of willing to just like do very little so that we can help each other out here. You know, if you compile enough stories like that guy in the boat, you know, you can't really blame somebody from kind of being that extra paranoid tinfoil hat wearing person about like, well, you know, the government's going to come and take everything away. Because when you see that, you go, Jesus, is that guy actually right? He sounds crazy. But then you see this and you're like, you know, I'm not agreeing with that person. I'm just saying, like, it's not a good look, government, when you do stuff like that and it gets reported.
I mean, that is not a good look, but I think I'm laughing because you're saying tinfoil hat. But like that's the other piece of this though, is the conspiracy theories. And like, I find myself spending a lot of time
really
cutting down conspiracy theory, because
okay,
I work with teenagers, and so they hear this, you know, for example, right. Like I had a girl be like, well, I'm really glad we're not a communist or a socialist country. And I was like, okay. And why is that? And she was like, because we'd have our grocery store shut down and no one would give us any food, and we'd be without food and shelter, right, and stuff. And, you know, and I said to her, I said, you know, I don't really, for the most part, I mean, I've told you before, I lean blue and I work in a very red county. Right. And I think that has been good for me. And I have found a lot of people that I like. But right, every once in a while, we get into a situation where I hear things that I'm like, okay, like, should I say something? Should I not? Should I educate? Should I not? And in this instance, I was just like, okay, please tell me why you feel that this is like what socialism is. Right. And it was like, well, we're capitalists, so they can't tell us what to do. And I was like, okay. And I said, but they're not shutting down the grocery stores. I was like, you'll get food because they won't do that or whatever. So we kind of went round and round about this thing. And at the end of it, she was just like, well, I heard that they were going to come and they were going to shut down all the stores and take our guns, and we're never going to be able to like feel, you know, like just a very extremist version. And I was like, okay. I said, well, I just don't know where you're getting your news from. I said, but honey, you know, the thing that you're actually saying you would like the government to come in and make sure you have food and make sure you have health insurance and make sure that they come up with a vaccine and make sure that you don't get ill from this. I said, so actually the thing that you want, right, you're asking for socialism. I said, you're not asking for capitalism. I said, you want your government to come in and fix the problem. And I said, and if you want that, you're not actually asking for capitalism. Right. Said, you know, and she was like, oh, well, what does this mean? You know, so we had this discussion. But if you are out in a county where it's, you know what I mean? Like they actually believe that they need to have their shotguns ready.
Well, you know, I mean, you hear a couple like anecdotes and you're just sort of off to the races, and that, you know, you have to form your opinion based on that. And, you know, and if you just, it's kind of like, you know, wherever you decide to get your news from, whether it's like, you know, MSNBC or Fox or, you know, Breitbart or something, like, you know, you're not going to ever really be able to cross that threshold and learn about kind of alternate ways of thinking if the only thing that you get, you're just constantly inundated by whatever thing is going to just sort of recycle what you've already heard a couple of times.
Yeah.
You know,
and I think, and we all can't say like we don't lean, like you'll listen to one version versus another version. Yeah. I don't think anyone's not guilty of that, but yeah. I also think that if you attempt to be, and you and I have talked about, I mean, this is outside of what's currently going on, but where we talk about the extremists, and you have made jokes about like where you're like, I'm actually, you know, I would consider myself left, and someone like, I'm a moderate human being, and someone has pulled me into a situation where I feel like I'm arguing something that I don't really feel like I need to be arguing. You know what I mean? Right. Like it's the way that we are. So I don't think I find that surprising in this situation, except that for something that really does actually impact people's lives, I feel like it's so important to get real information versus the spin.
Yeah.
And the spin is playing a huge component.
Yeah.
Depending on what you watch. And no matter what news station you watch, I think this is true across the board. It all sounds horrible. When I listen, I'm like, we're all going to die. I just turn it off because I'm like, no matter what I hear, there's no version of this that makes me feel like it's okay.
Yeah, you really just can't trust the news at this point. I mean, I'm sure that there probably are some, news organizations that probably do a pretty good job. But like the stuff that I've been watching most recently, it's like I can't even deal with it because it's so clearly entertainment and not just here are the facts. I'll let you decide what to be angry about. It's very much just like, here's what you should be angry about. And I'm always thinking like, dude, that's not your job. Like your job isn't to tell me what I should be angry about. Your job is to just state what happened and, not always have this like crusader, mentality about you to this has to stop or this has to not to keep going or whatever it is. Like that stuff just drives me crazy.
Yeah.
So when you so you mentioned that a lot of your clients are kind of coming in and this is sort of what they're talking about. Do you feel like when this all started to happen, especially like the quarantine, once we've decided sort of everyone was like, okay, this is all we're going to talk about now because it's all I can, what the hell else can you even talk about right now? Everything else just seems trivial. It's like, I want to talk about NFL. I want to talk about the offseason. I want to talk about how completely insane it is that Tom Brady is going to be playing for Tampa Bay. Like that should be the stupid shit that we're talking about. We should just be like,
because that's actually a pretty big thing to discuss.
Oh, it's huge, but it's trivial. I mean, it is. But like I need to hear the hot take of every doofus on Instagram. Like, well, I think that Tom is gonna like I just this is the stupid world that we're supposed to be in. But it's just anytime I kind of go there, I'm just kind of like meh. It's just not. It just seems like I'm not as pumped to talk about it as I probably should be. And what I'm wondering is, like, obviously all of your clients had issues prior to this. That's why they were seeing you.
Mm-hmm.
When this started happening, was it like you turned a page and all of a sudden it was like all that other shit can just kind of wait a minute and now I'm kind of like I just want to talk about this, or are you still getting like both of them, or what did that look like, or what did that feel like?
Most of it probably was everything we were doing just went on hold, and now here's the thing we talk about. We talk about what's going on, globally right now. I think it's hard because for some, they're more irritated that this has happened. Like you have a section of people where they're irritated that this affected their life. So it's not this, I'm anxious about this. It's this came in and impacted my life. And because I don't feel like it should impact my life, I'm not happy about it. Mm-hmm. But overall, what I have seen is if you already had things on your mind or you already had a pre-existing mental health component, mm-hmm. This has taken what you experience and taken it to a different level. So like really? I have people that, were seeing me every other week and now it's like, I need to talk to you every week, or I was seeing you once a month because I was in really good shape and on my way out. And now here's all these things that have been brought back up again. And the only thing I've been able to connect so far is kind of that feeling of isolation and being alone with your own thoughts. So the things I would do to cope, I can't do to cope. I can't leave. It sounds trivial, but like I can't go to the gym. I can't go do this.
It doesn't sound trivial at all.
But when that stuff goes away, I find that all these people that were like, okay, here's all the things I've learned to do to take care of my mental health, they've all been taken away. So now here I am. And on top of that, I'm actually nervous. Is this something that will impact me? Is it something that won't? And I think that one of the things that people are really struggling with is we do get a lot of mixed messages about what's
About
happening.
the conclusion to this,
We don't know. I mean, every day it's like, first it was, okay, well, if you're older, now it's like, well, no, if you're young, this can happen to you too. Or no, if you have an underlying condition, or no, we didn't think it affects children. Now we think it affects children, or it's airborne, or it's not airborne. I mean, we just sit and get inundated with different thing. And it's hard. I mean, it's hard for me to look at someone and be like, don't worry, it's all going to work out. Because I'm sitting here and I'm like, I actually don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you about that. But I think that has been the thing, is I feel like it's taken people who have been in maybe even a okay place and undone it.
Yeah.
They just, I don't know, you're in your home and you got a lot of time to think, and here all of a sudden it's like, okay, like this is worse than I thought. So I've gotten a lot of messages about, I'm not harming myself yet, but here's how I feel. Or I'm not going to do this yet, but this is how I feel. And that part's been difficult because, I'm trying to walk somebody through something over a computer screen. And, I don't know that it's always you have the perfect message, because this is not something I can actually take away. This is a real thing that's happening. So,
Right. It can be, I think it can be very, very intense and very difficult to just sort of like have nothing but your thoughts. I think can be a rough area for people, because it's like we distract ourselves so much. There's so many like things, just little little sprinkles of things throughout your life that you probably never really totally deal with however you need to, whether it's small or big or whatever. Like you just kind of, you just move on to the next thing, probably subconsciously on some level. And I think you, like, if you've lived for 20 or 30 years or something, or 40 or 50 years, and all of a sudden one day it's like, let's just turn off a lot of your distractions, and you're gonna have to sit there and you're gonna have to you're gonna have to talk to yourself for a while. I think that's a good component. That's a good seed for crazy.
I think so. And I think that even if you're not someone who maybe on a daily basis, we all struggle. And if you say you don't, you're lying. Mm-hmm. So whatever it is that you walk with, we all have our own little things that we battle. But obviously, if you have a predominant mental health issue or something, maybe bigger, or something bigger that's happened to you, you're already at a disadvantage in this kind of situation. Because on the regular, if you're someone who's like, well, sometimes I get anxious, or sometimes I feel lost, or sometimes I feel like I don't know if I like this, or maybe I want a new life direction.
Right.
Already alone with your thoughts, you're like, these are all these things that I'm thinking. If you add in the extra component, I'm bipolar, I have PTSD, I have, all of a sudden you're saying, okay, now you're alone. No one's here to talk to you. And you've now taken all these components and put them together. I feel like it's the perfect storm for some people to really not be in a good place with themselves. Totally.
Yeah. It makes total sense. I mean, so you're saying kind of if you're the type of person that doesn't necessarily sometimes I feel anxious about things, but somebody who's truly like a diagnosed person with, what is it now, generalized anxiety disorder, or somebody who has an actual clinical depression, as in in their brain, like they have a chemical imbalance in which they are depressed. I can imagine that something like this would totally trigger that in a really ugly way.
Yeah. Or for example, I mean, this is a real life example, but I think of her in particular. The month of March happens to be the anniversary of when she was kidnapped. And so now you're talking about someone who's a kidnap victim, who's essentially told you can't leave your house. And so,
right.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, these are components of that one resonates with me pretty deeply, because it's already this time where she relives a time in her life where this horrible thing happened.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's like, normally the things that you do, you can't leave, you can't process them, you can't go out, you can't find a way to ground yourself into a different reality. You're just sitting at home,
Right.
reliving the time that this happened to you.
Yeah. You can't have those like, well, whenever I feel this way, I walk down to the pond and I,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't get to go feed the ducks or whatever it is that you're going to do, whatever that version is. But it's like, there's some people that just really have had these horrible things happen to them.
Yeah.
And so this particular thing is not so much about, you can look and say, okay, well, you'll be fine. And if you stay home, you'll be fine. And they might know that, but it's all the underlying stuff that it's like, okay, now I'm just alone with my own thoughts. And I mean, hell, if I'm alone with my own thoughts, sometimes I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
good. I don't need to be alone with my thoughts. I need to go do anything else besides that.
You're very very analytical person as well, and I feel like most of the more analytical people are kind of the ones where it's like, this isn't good. I need to.
Yeah, like I don't want to.
I can't do this.
Yeah, I don't need all the pathways I've just come up with, to figure it out. But so it goes. I mean, it will get figured out. But I just think it in mental health, it's a more intense thing right now because it just brings out. Instead of bringing out the best, sometimes it brings out the worst. And I think that's what we're seeing sometimes.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier kind of the sort of like lack of clarity and kind of how like every other day there's like this new fact about the coronavirus, or there's some like, well, it was only old people and now it's young people, whatever, all those kind of new things that happen. I think that also happens to be a great source for the conspiracy theories and the paranoia, because and I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist at all, and in fact I usually when I hear stuff like that, I'm just like, shut the fuck up. Like I usually think that is stupid, but like there are some things about this where I'm not saying I know the answer to anything, but there are some things where I'm just like, that does seem odd, or just like when every other day there's sort of this new fact that we didn't know about, and some of them just seem very bizarre, like the whole, oh yeah, some people just lose their sense of taste and smell. And like I remember I heard that when I was just like are we just going to be like, oh, okay, like that's a symptom, all right. Like I look at that and I go, whoa, like back up, that's weird. That's a very odd symptom. And sometimes my brain goes places. Like sometimes I'm just thinking, is it possible that this is one of these things where, maybe some of the experts know more, or they know some other thing, and they go, well, we can't tell people this because we'll just cause a panic. I mean, like, I don't know. I don't think it's that reasonable to think that could be the case.
I'll tell you what, I do know. So one of my really good friends, her cousin tested. He lives in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Went to work, got, tested positive for this, which is not unlikely in New York. Right. And he said the most aggravating part was the loss of senses. Like that was his, he had a fever. He had the, dry cough.
Right.
He had what they would probably have called the
minor,
like the 80% where you get it and you recover, you don't need. So he was
sick, but you're fine.
Yeah. But he had a fever and he didn't feel good and all those things. But he said the most aggravating part was that he couldn't taste anything. He couldn't smell anything. And then after about 10 days, then all of a sudden back came all of his senses. Not that has to do with, conspiracy or what people do or do not know. Yeah. But I was like, okay, because and if I'm being honest, I was so nosy because I was like, what happens if I get it? Like, I wanted to know. I was like, if I get it, is this what's going to happen? Or is this not, So I told her, and I was like, I'm like so nosy and really rude, and I'm glad he's okay, but I would really like to know what was his experience. Mm-hmm. And she was like, he said the most aggravating part of this was the loss of senses. Yeah. So that is something they pointed out, but don't say that it happens necessarily to everyone. But then I heard that was like a big part of his thing. Yeah. It's like, I lost this. So to your point, is that a thing that they know? Is that a thing that's random? Is that a thing, we don't know.
I think they know that it exists among some people, but I don't get the impression that there's a conclusion as to why some people get it and why others don't. And it does seem that everything about this, it always points to like everyone has their own unique, body. And so there's some stuff about blood type, certain blood types seem to do better or worse. And, obviously age plays a factor. It seems to be much more pointed towards men versus women. That's another thing. More men seem to have like the worst results from it. So it seems that there's just a lot of variables that, that cause it to be like better or worse for some people. It's just that, some of these side effects, I don't know, they just seem very like psychological thriller movie to me. Like there's just certain things about it where I'm like, I don't know. and I'm just an idiot. Who am I? But I can't help it. There are certain things where I'm like, this is weird. And I don't know. I mean, is that, the further down this situation you go, the more days that go by and weeks that go by, things just seem more possible. Like the unlikely thing from a month ago, all of a sudden a month later, you're just like, well, maybe.
But to be fair, because I'm not a scientist, so I'm not in charge of this thing, which, I'm like, if this is your job right now to figure out how to tackle this, I feel sorry for you, because you're running a race against the clock of people looking and saying, figure it out, get us a vaccine, get us antibodies, get us, I don't, and I am not smart enough, nor would I claim to be, and actually, nor would I claim to be interested enough to be the person who needs to figure this out. Yeah. So I would not do all of that. But I do know that in I feel like I'm pretty good at like what's a reputable news source versus what's not. But one of the things I've seen is like they have found 8 different strains of this virus.
Yeah, that maybe freaks me out more than anything, is that thing.
Yeah, where I'm like, okay, so you're basically lining this up and saying, okay, here's all the people that we're looking at, we're collecting data, and this thing mutates into 8 different versions. So, then I look and I'm like, okay, well, how do you tackle that then? How do you know? Well, obviously then it must be mighty contagious if there's 8 versions of it going around. So is the idea of people, old versus young versus we don't know who gets what? Well, is that because somebody might get a strain that's horrible versus somebody might get a strain that's not horrible?
Right.
I just feel like to be fair to the scientific people trying to present facts, I don't think they've had enough time to look at it.
No, certainly not. Yeah.
So anything they look at all gets put out on the news. Oh, they found this. Oh, they found that. And I feel like if I was a scientist, I would be like, please be quiet. Please don't talk until we can figure it out.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I mean, the doctor or the scientist, learns a new thing or learns that there's a new possibility of a thing, whether it's a cure or a side effect or whatever. And so I suppose they do their what they're supposed to do and sort of talk to somebody in the media, and the media then reports on it. But the doctor or the science version may be, 1 in every 1 million is 50% chance of blah 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 blah. And when you look at it, something like that, you go, oh, all right, this is just such a tiny little thing. But the moment that it comes out of like Chris Cuomo's mouth, you know what I mean, or whoever, it's going to have some oomph behind it. It may not just be, oh yeah, there's this thing that like almost will never happen that does exist. Instead it's like, we go live to the man who apparently blah 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 blah, whatever it is. And and so again, it's like the hearing it from the news's mouth versus like the scientist's mouth is a totally different experience. And it's nice when you hear from somebody like Fauci, because he just has a very like, look, this is what it is. It's not good, It's not the end of the world, but it's not good. And here's kind of what we're going to have to do. And this is the plan. And that's that. And it's, it's like, hearing your dad or somebody just kind of like, Adam, here's what we're going to do. And blah. And you go, oh, okay.
Yeah. And for some reason, that's way more calming, right? Not for some reason. It's obvious why that's more calming. It's someone looking at you and saying, here's what we know. Here's what we know has to happen. And that delivery is very different than, I mean, look, I hope Chris Cuomo is okay. I bear him no ill will. Yeah. I think it's terrible that he's feeling the way that he feels, but basically it's like the blog from his basement.
I know.
I had hallucinations and I chipped my tooth from shivering, and like I actually get, and I don't feel like I'm a big escalator, but like I listen to that and I get anxious. I'm like, I don't know. I don't want that. I don't want my parents to get that. I don't want anybody that I know to get that, and then I end up telling myself really weird shit like, well, Tom Hanks got it and he was totally fine. And somehow that makes me feel better that Tom Hanks survived COVID-19, and it's like, why? I mean, what a weird thing to look and try and be like, okay, well, if this person was okay or this person was okay, you start to rationalize weird things in your head. Whereas when I listen to doctors, a lot of them, I mean, they're so honest about just, we don't know yet. So here's what we'll tell you: wash your hands and don't be an idiot. Like they literally just sit around and tell you, like, use common sense and you're probably going to be fine. But we need to listen to the idea of, we're asking you to do this because A, B, and C. And I feel like if that's what they passed around a lot, I think people would be more receptive and calmer.
Yeah, although, and just to play devil's advocate here, it does make, I mean, I agree with you. But the one thing that I think might make it complicated is that if there weren't any level of like, oh shit, or oh, this is bad, and we sort of, knew that we needed to quarantine people, what do you suppose the public reaction would be if we kind of had this like, look, just wash your hands and we're not really sure yet. And no one can leave their house. I wonder how people would react to something like that. So in a sense, I almost, as much as I, can't stand the news right now, I wonder if, is the news sort of necessary to like, show all this negative stuff and all these horror stories, because without that, we would sort of not believe the severity of it, like stay at home. And we go, why would I stay at home? You should stay at home because look at these horrible images. And you go, oh shit, all right, I'll stay home, but like without that, do we just go, I'm not staying home. I don't even know what this is talking about.
Yeah, I think that's a good argument, because I actually think that's the reason for sensationalism anyway, to some degree. And I mean, that's a good devil's advocate, because we already are looking at people who literally just won't do what they're asked to do. So if you present it logically, which really the idea of everyone staying home is to slow down this whole thing so that they can take care of people who get it, so that you won't overwhelm the system. So, I mean, there's this whole logic behind it of stay home, do what you're asked to do so that people who are most vulnerable are protected, but also let's not overwhelm the hospitals and healthcare and all these things that we can't overwhelm, because more people will die than have to die if we were to just listen. So that all sounds very logical. And when people present it that way, no one listens. Okay, well, I'm not in the group. I'm not in the high risk group. I'm fine. All the spring breakers who went to Florida and got it anyway, no big deal. I'm 20. So if I get it. So your argument is a good one, because I do think that, like, I think that they highlight the catastrophe because it's the only thing that scares human beings enough to listen. So in that regard, I don't think it's hard to hold them accountable for that, because I think that if they were to get on and just say, hey, if you do A, B, and C, we'll be okay. But, we're developing this, or we're looking at, I mean, I think we didn't take it seriously.
Right.
Until it started to overwhelm the United States as it was. Like, we just all kind of went about our business and was like, oh, it's in China. It's not here. It's just, that's human nature. I feel like, to some degree. So it's
Yeah.
a good argument. It's a good argument to say.
I don't want to make that argument, but the more I think about it, the more I go, yeah, how do you convince all these people to stay home if they're not worried about something, you know?
Yeah.
Because then it's just like, what are you talking about? Like, what is going on here? But you know, I don't think that the news, I don't think that the media does that because necessarily it's in the people's best interest to stay at home. I mean, I think that exists. I don't think they're like bad people per se. But I don't think that the top of mind thing for them is hey, like we need to do this so that people will stay at home. I think that for them it's just a matter of like sensationalism sells. Like they're trying to make money. It's tough for like a mainstream media source or entertainment source of any mainstream thing. It's hard to be relevant at this day and age when you can just get good stuff from whatever, like YouTube or any other thing. So it's hard to battle for that real estate. And so I think that's the reason that they do it. So it's almost like maybe they end up doing the right thing, but for the wrong reason.
Yeah. But I also think that depends on who you are. Like, I mean, there are news stations that also denied that it was a real thing to begin with.
Right.
The complete opposite way. And we're like, don't listen to anything because this is a hoax and a political game, and that doesn't do anyone any good either. I think what we never ever have, or at least what I feel like we never have, are shades of gray. We just always, it's just this, one extreme where I'm looking and I'm like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard, to pretend that something is not existent. To the other extreme where I'm like, okay, well, if I watch this, I'm pretty sure I'm going to die.
Right.
Like, no, and I would like to say I'm above buying into it, but if I hear certain things enough, I get anxious and I'm like, okay, like I don't want to watch this because I'm pretty sure. But I think then there's the complete other side of it, and no one ever has a happy medium of what's going on.
Yeah, it's very hard. You're right. I mean, everything is so polarized right now. And that's why, we have Tiger King, because,
Still haven't watched, but I hear people.
Oh, you haven't watched it?
Not yet. But I heard it's good. Katie told me this was what you guys were watching, and a lot of other people have also told me.
Oh yeah, we joined the masses of basics, and I assume that's basic. I get, because everyone watches it, right?
Either that or Love Is Blind. I don't know.
Right. No, I didn't do that one. But I mean, I say that while drinking a freaking White Claw. So yeah, it's worth checking out. It's entertaining. It will distract you from the current goings on, and actually it will make you angry about something else, which might really be the best remedy of getting over something or dealing with anxiety. Is what if you can just come up with something else to be pissed off at?
I guess so.
This is like the pessimist's view of therapy. It's like, oh, I'll find something else for you to be upset about.
Well, it's not bad, and I do now. Since I haven't jumped on the boat, I don't know. I know that there's a lot of memes about the woman killed the husband and all the
Carol
stuff.
Baskin. Yep.
But I am honest. Like, I literally get on Netflix and watch Schitt's Creek, and I am just, there's nothing about that makes me angry. Everything about that is like, I'll just check into a completely different reality,
right,
and laugh. And I prefer that, but I'm not opposed to Tiger King. I might come back to it because we have a lot of time.
Right. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
What about movies, or like other than Schitt's Creek? Is there anything you've been watching, just like distract yourself?
Not really. Usually, I know, well, this is awful, but usually I'm like, well, I watch Snapped and I watch Dayline. You know how I am with the murder.
Right.
But even now, I'm like, ugh, I don't know. It's kind of dark. And I just feel like everything is dark. So I've actually been reading more than watching anything. I just have been reading books instead.
But not murder porn books, right?
Not what?
Not murder porn books.
No.
Murder porn earlier.
No murder porn books, which is also normally my go-to, but like this is just, it's like it's not even, it doesn't challenge my brain at all, but it's like, this is happy and would never happen in real life, but it is a good time when I read it. And movies, I feel like I have more time for that now, but I have not. I've been like, oh, I need to watch this or I need to watch, but I have not watched anything.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's good that you haven't, joined the country in its quest to gain 50 pounds by the end of this thing, which I feel like is probably going to be the vast majority of us.
I mean, I don't know about that. I have helped all small businesses by going to every brewery there is and being
really?
Hey, I'll take. Yeah, they're selling all the crowlers and like all these things, and I'm like, every Friday I pick a different brewery, and I'm like, okay, I'll buy from you this weekend.
That's cool.
I can't say I won't gain 50 pounds, but I am trying.
So it is on the table, but you won't be doing it in front of the TV.
Yeah, I won't do it in front of the TV, but I am trying to move and then alternatively support local business. That's how I keep telling myself it's a good thing to be doing it.
Right. I haven't really we haven't really been doing too much of the takeout. We've just been like buying a ton of food and eating at home. So we've been kind of good about that, but I do actually want to do a little bit more of that. We went to this place that's right in that like shopping center near our house.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like a punchline because it just seems like such a niche thing where I remember when they moved in, I was like, how in the world is this place going to survive? It's like a bundt cake bakery, and they only do bundt cakes.
Have we eaten from there? I guess not, because I don't remember. Okay.
No, I've only been there. I've only gotten food from there once, and it was just recently because I was thinking about, man, it's so shitty that just so many of these places are not going to survive this, especially if it lasts for like another couple of months. There's just no way. Like so many places are going to shut down.
Yeah.
And I was thinking like, all right, who would I suppose like maybe needs my money the most that's like inside of like a 1 mile radius? And of course, sure enough, I thought of like, oh, the fucking bundt cake place. Like, and who knows, maybe I'm wrong. Like they've been there for like 2 years and it's a fairly expensive place to rent from. So I could be dead wrong. And maybe all these people in my area are like bundt cake fanatics. But I was skeptical. But anyway, I got like 20 or something of these like really tiny little like small cupcake size bundt cakes.
Yeah, cute ones.
Delicious.
Okay.
Like insane. I take everything, all the bad stuff I ever said about bundt cakes back.
Have you said bad shit about bundt cakes?
For years, I've been stewing about bundt cakes. I just mean that it seems like such an irrelevant, place to me that I was like kind of skeptical about it. But now after having eaten them, I was like, okay, they are really good.
Well, first of all, you supported local business.
Mm-hmm.
Second of all, apparently you've overcome a vendetta against bundt cakes.
Right. Very true. Right.
And third, whether they make it or not, I feel like eating at home is better and it's more cost effective. But I do feel like for all people in service, it is nice to try and, do something.
You know what I was thinking about today too is how let's suppose in like a month or 2 months or whatever, they say, okay, guys, hey, we can go back to work now. So, go ahead. When they do that, it's not going to just be like a free for all. Like I don't think people are going to be like, hey, let's all go to Bonnaroo like the moment this thing is over. Like there's going to be, even if like that stuff was okay, like even if you could go to a music festival or something, people after so many months of this, it's going to, I think, be established as like a new normal. And so the idea of just jumping right back into all of these like social things that we would do and kind of not worrying about germs or whatever, like it's going to be a hard bridge for a lot of people to cross. And so, on top of the fact that I think small businesses and like the entertainment industry and the gig economy and all these places that are basically just at a dead stop, I don't think that the moment that they open the doors and they say, all right, guys, like things can go back to normal, that they will go back to normal, because I think that the demand for a lot of those things is going to be down for a long time. I don't see people, like going to concerts as much as they used to, or like, I mean, can you imagine, like, with everything that's going on, add 2 more months to it. And then in September, be like, all right, go to the football game. There's 68,000 people in the stadium.
Yeah.
I mean, if I feel like there's a pretty good chance that I might be like, I don't know if I really want to do that. And I'm like, I would, if somebody says, hey, I've got Eagles tickets, let's go. I'm like 100% in. And I honestly, I don't know how I'm going to feel. I really might not want to go.
I mean, I think that caution is a good argument. Like, I mean, I do think that. I think people will be, one, to say it's a new normal is true because people adjust. So over time, it's like, I'm not saying everybody likes it, but like over time, it's not going to be new anymore. It's like, this is how I live.
How long do you think that takes? I don't know if is that like a psychological question? Is there some experiment about that or something?
I mean, the actual brain, if you wanted to put it down to science, a brain takes about 28 to 30 days to form new neuron pathways. So if you do something repeatedly for essentially a month, it becomes like, okay, this is how we think now. This is how we do things now. Obviously, there are a lot of extraneous factors, environmental, whatever life circumstances, but neurologically speaking, there is actually a scientific base to that, which is if you rehearse something for about a month, you start to just become like, okay, that's how I'm doing something now.
Yeah.
And for most people, we're all going to hit that. I mean, I know April, everyone's like, there's something, well, there's a lot of things on the internet, but right now there's something that's like, April something brings May existence, April distance bring May existence, or something like that. And I look at that and I'm like, it won't just be April.
Right.
I think it's a hopeful message, but I don't,
right.
but by the time April is over, most people are going to be like,
this is life.
Yeah. I mean, this is how we're living right now. Whether we like it or not, but if you didn't adjust, then you would always be upset. So you have to adapt. I mean, that's what human beings do. Psychologically speaking, that's why we're still here. If we didn't adapt, we wouldn't still be here. So, and then when you switch back, it'll be another transition into, okay, we can go out, but people will be cautious. They'll be like, okay, can I go out? Do I want to be around people? And then, to be quite honest, it's also an economical factor. So many people are out of work.
I know.
Open up the restaurants or open up all the things that people used to just be like, yeah, like let's go here on a Saturday afternoon. This is a matter of we can't afford to pay in that. So I think you're going to have a pretty good mixture of both. But, a concert is now a huge luxury versus before when it was like, oh, we can just buy a couple of tickets and it's no big deal. I think a lot of people are going to struggle with being able to pay their bills, let alone doing extras.
I mean, even people that have like a cushion, the people that are like, oh, we've got like 6 months of, there's a lot of people that are just going to lose a lot of money. Even the one that like, the responsible people, or the ones that have like, oh, and just in case I'm going to have all this, backup cash. Like there are going to be people that are still going to lose like tens of thousands of dollars. There are businesses that are just, I can't do this. I can't just keep this going.
Yeah. And I think that recovery, first of all, until there's a vaccine or something that actually makes people feel like, okay, I can go get this shot or medicine or something, there's going to be an extra layer of being wary about it. But then when you talk about economic recovery, that's a long, my God, it's going to be a long haul for people to just be like, hey, yeah, I'm all about, going and doing these like luxury things that I did before. It's just not going to be the same.
Oh God. I mean, the travel industry, talk about one that's going to just totally change.
Yeah. They have flights to Florida right now for $17.
I know. I've seen some of them and it's like, I like is as much as I'm kind of like, well, probably not going to do that. It's like, sometimes it's like my hand, my like mouse hand, I'm just like, hey. And I'm like,
it was over it. I'm going to do it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Someone posted one the other day. It was like, I think it was like LA to Miami. It was like $40 round trip. And I'm just like, what? That's so unbelievable.
I know. It is enough to make you dangle over there and go, maybe it's okay. because
yeah. Katie's talking about going up to Maine, because I mean, at this point, it's like she does, as you do, she's doing all her therapy like this.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, like, I can't be productive at all in terms of photography. So on one hand, I'm just like, wait a second. So you're telling me somebody could take care of Ellie, we could drive up to Maine, and like for days, I can just basically go around kind of the Maine coast. I'll probably be all by myself because there's not a lot of people up there right now because it's still the off season. And like, just work on stuff, get better, take photo. I mean, like, get some really, really good stuff. And like, I think about that and I go, man, that really sounds perfect. I mean, that is really perfect right now. But it's like my mom's at home and.
Well, where would you send Ellie? With your mom?
Well, I mean, I guess, either, I don't know, she would come up or Martha would watch her. So, like there's no shortage of people that want to watch.
Oh, I know. I think I was just thinking like, okay, who's been following the rules that you would give Ellie to them?
Right. Well, yeah, we'd have to figure that out. But I like on paper, it seems like it could probably do something.
Doable. Would you fly?
No, hell no.
Okay. Because really, you're not. If you just drove from Pennsylvania to Maine, I mean, it's a long drive, but honestly, then what are you doing? You're going from a place that's way more populated up to Maine where there's no people.
That's true. In a sense, it's probably safer. And there are certainly way less cases in Maine. I mean, Pennsylvania, it looks as though Pennsylvania might be on one of these like very steep climbs right now because the number of cases, last time I checked, the number of new cases today was like the most of any previous day-to-day period, like significantly. Like I think like yesterday, it was like 600 or something, and today it's like 1,100. So it like doubled the amount of cases in a day. So now I'm kind of thinking like, all right, we're about to, over the next couple of weeks, it's probably going to start getting a little bit real. Probably not New York real, but
No, but they did say I'm like I don't even know. But there was this next week to 2 weeks in the United States in general is going to be because they're following the track of we're like 2 weeks behind Italy.
Yeah.
So that makes sense to me, just to say, okay, well, we're following the data, and here's going to be where it gets really bad. But it's also where they test way more people because we had 0 tests. So now all of a sudden you can test way more people. But overall, the moral of that story is Maine probably isn't going to be a place where it gets worse. Probably.
Yeah, you would think. It just kind of depends on where you stop for gas, I guess. You don't want to like pull over at Times Square for some gas. Like you want to strategically plan that out to where you're not.
Yeah. And take Clorox wipes and wipe the pump. I did that, and then forgot that I had like held the pump down and ended up shooting gas all over the station.
Really?
Yeah. And I was like, okay, how long has it been since you've been outside of your house, Lisa? But like I was so focused on you don't want to touch the pump. And so I had it locked to fill up the tank. And when I pulled it out, I was like, I had the Clorox wipe and it got stuck and I ended up shooting gas everywhere. There was gas all over the place. And then I was like, well, I don't really know who to say sorry to. So I'm just going to take the Clorox wipe and put it back and pretend that didn't happen. But it was pretty blatant. It was just like a stream of gas all over the pump, all over the,
Did they like come outside or anything?
No one did. The guy next to me was just like, what a fucking idiot. Which
he saw the whole thing?
Like he just looked over and I was like, yeah. But at the same time, I was so focused on I don't want to touch the handle. So this is the weird life that we're living. I didn't want to touch the handle. I was like, I don't know who's touched this handle. So I'm doing all the right things. And then I got distracted from the fact that I could operate a gas pump and not look like an asshole. But it didn't happen.
It's the bummer when you end up screwing something up and look careless, while in reality there was this extreme effort to like be extra careful. You know what I mean? It's like that's always the worst when you're just like, I'm gonna make extra sure that I do that. I don't want anything to happen, and then like you set yourself on fire, and you're like
And it would never be empty. That would never happen. So it was like obviously some guy who was right on the other side of me who was like, you look like a small child female who's never bought her own gas.
Oh, he's definitely 100%. You were a meme.
It was like
you were like that bitch. You know,
Yeah.
that was your,
I should have just put a neon sign over
right,
it. The basic bitch
right,
with a wipe who didn't know how to operate.
right.
Awful.
By the way, have you been sitting on the floor this entire time?
Yeah, I'm in front of my couch.
Oh, is that comfortable?
Actually, it is, but yeah, it's comfortable.
I've been thinking about that for like the last hour and a half or so that we've been doing
Oh,
this.
yeah?
I haven't had a good opportunity to be like, dude, you're sitting on the floor, right?
I am sitting on the floor, but actually the cushions are really comfortable behind me. And so it was just,
Okay.
I don't like holding the computer on my lap. And there's a good table in front of me where I can just like sit and.
I'm working with the table, but now that I've got this kind of nice aesthetic here, although it's angled up,
You have like a salt lamp and a
couple of lines with our little Himalayan salt lamp here, and then we've got a print right there.
Yeah, you can tell who you're married to by your aesthetic.
Yeah, well, the Himalayan.
The Himalayan salt lamp, that is your photography above your head.
That's true. That's true. But yeah, the Himalayan salt lamp, that's about as Katie as it gets.
Yeah, that is
That's
about
not me. I didn't decide I needed to ionize the air around me using a block of salt. That was her.
It's all her, but you're certainly benefiting from it.
Absolutely.
But I am on the floor. But I was trying to think, I was like, I don't feel like sitting here holding this thing on my lap the whole time. And the dining chairs are okay, but like,
they're hard to sit in for an extended period.
I don't like just sitting there and being like, let me sit up rigidly while I talk in this chair. It's just not a good feel. So,
yeah. Well, dude, thanks so much for doing this with me. I really appreciate it. And again, this is really predominantly to like archive our memories, and one day we can look back on this and be like, oh yeah, like you thought that, what an idiot, or whatever, whatever thing we want to conjure up and say what a weird time that was. So thanks for doing it, and who knows, maybe some people will hear about it and they'll hear some of the thoughts that you had, and it'll make them feel a little bit better.
Yeah, well, thoughts both ways. I mean, I think this is like first of all, what else do we have to do? I mean, I don't want to be that person, but it's a good time to chat because we're all just kind of sitting here. But regardless, I don't think it's a time anyone will forget. Whatever your opinion on it, this is something they're going to talk about it now. They'll talk about it when it's over. They'll talk about it in the future, about how it was when it happened.
Never happened again, and all that. Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned the whole what else am I going to do? So I've been contacting a lot of different types of people to keep this going. So because if I go with laps and I don't have anybody lined up, I won't do it. But if I've got like 12 people that are like, yes, I'll do it, I'm good. I've gotten some photographers that honestly, like, I have no business. I'm like, this guy's not gonna respond to you, and then they're like, yeah, sure, dude. Like, I'm down, and I'm like, what?
Oh, that's so great.
Oh, it's awesome. So I got some people that I'm really psyched to talk to. I won't say like who they are at the moment, but yeah, people where I'm like, oh man, this guy's work is really good, and like the type of people where it's like I would totally want to talk to this person anyway, let alone like on this thing that I'm doing. So I can only attribute the fact that there's like, all right, to the fact that there's just nothing. They're like other photographers, and they're like, I can't leave my house. Like, I'll talk to this dumbass. Like, fine,
Well, let's not call you a dumbass, but it's good to have extra time. I imagine they probably have the thought about extra time. I don't think they think that you're an asshole that has
right. Well, the comedic part of my brain has to, put in a little.
I know, but I do think that's really cool, and honestly, it is an opportunity because we all ask for downtime, and now that we have it, we're like, what am I supposed to do?
Right.
So,
and I'll be the one taking advantage of it.
Yeah, you're taking advantage, and you're going to get, so that's good. I'm excited to see who else pops up. And I did enjoy the toilet paper talk with the time lapse.
I have to make sure that becomes an ongoing, theme. Maybe I can like cut to some sort of a clip about like, it's toilet paper time, or, something.
Well, I think everyone probably has their own story about toilet paper. So you should
right.
No matter what, you should be asking about the toilet paper.
If there's one thing that brings us all together besides Tiger King, it's the toilet paper stories.
Yeah.
So I'd love to say, hey, like I'll see you, in a couple of weeks or something, but it seems like everything's just keeps getting canceled. But I know as soon as this is over, we'll probably come see you. You're going to come up or
We're
something.
going to do one way or the other. So I'm going to say I'll see you soon because it makes me feel better to say that. But until then, we'll be doing this, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, Adam. Thanks for hanging. It was fun.
You too.
Okay. Bye.